This is Trophy Dark, a warm and pleasant hum. I want to start by having all of us introduce ourselves. When I call on you, say your name, your pronouns, and anything else you'd like for us to know about you. Um, I will start. My name is Jason. I use he, him. I am the publisher of Trophy, and I have run this incursion a couple of times before. It's a favorite, and it was a contest, one of the contest winners a couple of years back, or whatever that was. Yeah, so I'm excited to give it a go again tonight. Let's go to Rob.
Hi, I'm Rob, also he, him. I'm just a fan and occasional player of Trophy when I get a chance. Played in several other games with Jason and various other people.
Awesome, thank you. Kai.
Hi, I'm Kai. I use they, them pronouns. I got into this game by accidentally going into the Discord one day, and this is actually my first time playing Trophy. I look forward to it.
Awesome. And Mark?
I'm Mark. I use he or them pronouns, and yeah, I make and play games as often as possible, so looking forward to it.
Fantastic. I'm going to begin with a little introductory procedure called CATS. CATS is an acronym that stands for Concept, Aim, Tone, and Subject Matter. The reason why I do this is just to establish some basic expectations for what's going to go on this week and next week. And so I will do that now. So the concept of Trophy Dark is a fantasy horror game. It is a horror game first and foremost, and kind of a fantasy game second, if I'm being honest. The game, in a big picture sense, is about a group of treasure hunters going into a place that doesn't want them there. It's usually a forest, but it can be all kinds of different environments. We're sort of seeing these characters at the end of their story, like they've had a whole life before, and we're getting them right at the tail end, usually a grisly tail end. The journey, the incursion that they're making is probably not going to end well for them. And that's what we're here to do, is just to enjoy seeing that sort of descent, that spiral. The game mechanically takes most of its sort of influences from another game called Cthulhu Dark, as well as Blades in the Dark to some degree as well, with the Devil's Bargains. And it is very much the creation of a really particular kind of play culture that the mechanics sort of enforce as well and encourage. Continuing with CATS for aim. 3 different types of aim: character aim, player aim, session aim. The character's aim is to, as aforementioned, to survive till the end and to get to the heart of the forest or wherever they're going, and to acquire riches and treasures. Our player aim is to tell a good story. Sometimes telling a good story is contradictory to the character aims. It might mean the better version of the story might be watching the characters fail, and that's okay. The game has a sort of play to lose ethos, meaning do your best to keep the characters alive, but when it looks like it's not going to happen, if it looks like they are going to descent into being unrecoverable, then lean into it and tell the best story you can. And then the session aim, we are going to make characters, and then we're going to play through the first 2 rings tonight, and then we will pick up next week with rings 3 through 5. After each session, we'll do a debrief. The tone of the game, as you might imagine, is dark. Levity is okay from time to time, but we should always try to circle back to that sort of dark place that the game likes to be in. And then subject matter. So I shall just... The incursions very handily list all the various subject matters you can expect in this in this incursion. Biting and stinging, cannibalism, confined spaces, eye trauma, graphic violence, that's true of every trophy, harm to animals and insects. Now, with all that said, we will have safety tools on the table, and so we'll talk about those now. We are going to have 3 different safety tools in use. The first is the open door policy. The open door policy, quite simply, is if you need to leave for any reason, you can do so. Tell us that you're leaving, but otherwise you don't have to explain yourself. The second safety tool is going to be the X card. In this context of a video call, what that means is if something happens that you find to be objectionable for some reason, or you are makes you uncomfortable in an unfun way, because you can be uncomfortable in a fun way, right? You can type in X card into the chat or just say it, and we will stop, and I might ask for clarification of what's being X carded specifically. I won't ask why, but might ask what, and we'll make whatever change we need to make, and then we'll continue playing. And then finally, we'll have lines and veils. This is my most significant and preferred safety tool. Essentially, for lines and veils, the idea is lines are things that we are just not going to do in the game period. It can even be something on the list of subject matters, by the way. We can work around it. It's not a big deal. But yeah, lines are things that are just not going to be in the game. We're not going to have it. Veils are things that we are okay with being in the game, but we just prefer not to role play it or see it on screen. So we'll always kind of cut to black or whatever. I will start by saying my personal lines and veils, and then I would like for everyone on the first break to share their lines and veils with me via chat, direct message chat, like you can switch to just me. Tell me on chat what your lines and veils are. And then when we get back from the break, I'll convey it to the group. But I'll share mine now. So for a line, we're gonna have sexual violence. I don't wanna have any sexual violence in the game at all. And I don't think it's going to come up, but I'll put it behind a line anyway. I'm going to put violence towards very small children. I don't think it's going to happen based off the incursion, but it might. And for veils, I'm going to put torture. I'm okay with torture being a thing. I just prefer not to role play that. So be thinking about yours and just be sure to communicate them to me on the break. Any questions about cats before we continue? Okie doke. In that case, we shall begin with character creation. And character creation is very straightforward. The character keeper is very, very automated. You just click the drop downs and pick things. You'll be choosing your character's name, their occupation, their background, and their drive. And then you will also choose 1, 2, or actually 0, 1, 2, or 3 rituals. The more rituals you choose in the beginning, the higher your character's starting ruin is, which means, not always, but it means they might have a harder time surviving. Just having played this game a lot, I can't imagine you needing more than 2 rituals, just FYI. There's just not enough time to get 3 rituals in there. But you know, it's up to you though. You're welcome to do as many as you wish, up to 3. So if everybody wants to just grab one of those first 3 columns and put your player name down there and your pronouns, it's very helpful. And then make your 4 choices for character creation. It's probably the fastest character creation in any fantasy role-playing game, if I had to guess. And I'm going to pause the recording while you all do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and introduce these characters. Now for character introductions, I definitely want the basics: name, occupation, background, drive, your skills, and rituals, basically that whole little first block of stuff there. And then anything else you might know about your character at this point. It's okay if you don't know much yet, but if you have just some kind of little inkling about what motivates them, what their drive is about especially, that's helpful. Throughout the game, one of our main things we'll be doing is learning about the characters. It's like literally like one of the major goals of the game is to learn about the characters. So you don't have to know everything right now. We're going to figure it out as we play. But anything to get going is always helpful. And so we'll start in the order of the sheet. Rob, tell us all that stuff about Osto. What do we got here?
Okay, Osto, who uses he, him pronouns. He is a failed pilgrim who has become a hedge. So he's into kind of trickery and making his living by performing as a magician or selling patent cures, that kind of thing. His drive is to become part of the swirling court. His background and occupation gives him skills in improvisation, rituals, spirits, and saints. And his rituals that he starts with are Bewitch and Hollow. Bewitch allows him to give a command to a creature. If by giving it a gift, and Hollow allows him to push a spirit from a body.
I love it. A quick question. Do you have any thoughts yet on the swirling court and what that means? Like, who are they? What are they? It's okay if
I
not.
think-
I'm just curious if you do.
Yeah, I imagine it as being some kind of more naturalistic and wild faith than the faith of the saints, the sisters. So I think Osto is someone who was, I'm envisioning him as having been an anchorite, which is someone who was like sealed into a chamber on the outside wall of a temple and lived his life there. You know, people would bring him food and so on, and then something broke him from that faith and that life, and he left and has become more drawn to the wilder places and the wilder, older beliefs. So I think, yeah, he kind of almost wants to merge with the forest in some way.
I'm curious. So, you know, these characters are going into the heart of the forest to acquire ostensibly something very valuable that will help them achieve their drive. I'm curious why you need either so much money or such a prize as this royal jelly, which we'll talk about later, in order to get into the swirling court. Like, what is it about their entrance fee that causes that to be the case?
Yeah, I think maybe it's partly to buy information or buy his way into the right circles to find out more about how to achieve this goal.
Oh, I see. So they're kind of mysterious then.
Yeah, and to kind of, yeah, a simple matter of supporting himself in the meantime. But
Awesome.
Trying to buy information from the right people.
No, it's good. I don't think I have any more questions. If anybody else has questions, by all means, jump in. But I'm okay. And so let's go to Mark and Moradai. Maybe?
Moradai, yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about
Yeah.
Moradai.
Let's see. Mordai is him. He is a guide who was previously or is a flockless shepherd, and his drive is to break the gesh placed by the Witch of Nevask. And there are a couple of rituals here. Scent, I can navigate a space by smell alone or follow the scent of a known creature. I can also summon or draw a known creature to me.
I love it. Bless you for pronouncing Gesh correctly, first of all. And then second of all, as almost no one does. What's the Gesh? Like, what do you have to do here? What are you compelled to do by the Witch of Nevask?
I feel like whatever the flock was, goats, sheep, whatever, I'm assuming intruded on the domain of the witch at some point, and as punishment, maybe just like scattered the flock to all corners of the world, and then said, you know, now you have to get them back together. And this is your like curse to do this.
Oh, okay, interesting. Oh, interesting. So I guess we'll probably find out more as we play, but I do want you to start thinking about why you can't just like leave your flock be and go do something else, you know?
I think that's the curse that the witch put on.
So it's a supernatural thing. Like you have to.
Okay. Yeah. She's like, I've scattered your flock and you cannot rest until you have gotten them again. Like you can't just like say, oh well, I'm gonna get a new flock. Like this is your deal now.
No, I like it. It's good. Okay, I think I'm good for now. And finally, let's go to Kiva. Tell us about Kiva.
Kiva was a courtesan, and she and her brother lived in some large city where she was part of the courts, and the two of them got caught for stealing, and they put her brother in prison, and they kicked her out of the courts. And there's something about the disgrace that makes me wear a mask. I'm not sure. I found a picture with a mask and it looks really cool to me. So now she's a sellsword, and she's trying to get enough money to get her brother out of prison. She has athletics and defense, surprise and flattery, and she can produce fire from herself.
I love it. Barstool Prison is one of the things that is pretty well defined at this point in the trophy fiction, and I will tell you, it's an unpleasant place, and getting out is really hard. And so it's definitely clear why you need either a fabulous treasure or a lot of money to accomplish this, because the jailers at the Barstool Prison, they don't mess around. And so getting out of there is no easy feat. I love it. It's a great backstory. I think is stealing the only reason why you're disgraced, or was there something else there? Is it just that?
I was thinking something else about, like, she had different nobles that they thought that she only spent time with them, and then some of them figured it out, and so when they realized that she was playing all of them, so like I don't know if they like scarred her face or if she just doesn't want to be recognized. I don't know. There's just a mask involved, but yeah, like she screwed the whole picture of this one.
Yeah, I like it. It's almost more like more political, almost, really, or like the affairs of the heart, even, which are very complicated. So yeah, that's good. I think I'm good. Does anybody else have any questions? Are we all ready to go? Okay, fabulous. So let me talk about a couple of rules things first before I introduce the incursion. So the mechanics are basically, they more or less revolve around this one single die roll called the risk roll. There are a couple of other rolls that can come into play. Notably, the ruin roll happens quite a lot, but the risk roll is the central one. And the thing about the risk roll, and the thing about trophy as a general matter, is a lot of the story is player authored. This is really, really important, because in a more traditional role-playing game, the GM sort of like distributes story to the players and the players react to it, right? And that's perfectly fine, but that's not how trophy works. I have a skeleton of an incursion. I mean, that's not totally fair. There's meat on the bone, but it's sparse intentionally, because we're going to use the game's rules to sort of fill in a lot of the details to make our own sort of story. And you all will be required to do that in different ways. And one of the main ways you'll do it is this thing called the risk roll. And in particular, there's this aspect of the risk roll called the devil's bargain. And I want to sort of, like, the devil's bargain is this idea of, okay, I'm trying to do something risky, and in order to get more dice to accomplish it, I can accept a bargain from the GM or another player, and this bargain is something that will happen no matter what. Whether I succeed or fail, this thing is going to happen, and I get my die for accepting the bargain. And your job as the bargain giver is to think of a cool story outcome, right? Like, the devil's bargains can be straightforward, but sometimes they're not. So for example, a sort of, let's imagine a character is sort of leaping across a chasm to try to get to the other side. A simple devil's bargain might be, no matter what, you're going to drop your sword down the chasm. So either you drop it as you reach the other side, or you drop it because you also drop down the chasm, right? That's a simple devil's bargain, nothing wrong with it, but it's pretty straightforward. A better devil's bargain might be, no matter what, one of those lords who you pissed off back when you were a courtesan is on the other side of the chasm, right? That's a good devil's bargain, right? Because it ties in people's story and sort of gets everybody like kind of twisty, right? And suddenly we have new story possibilities. So that is what this game asks of you, right? So just do your best to sort of like think about the broader story and how you can make it really interesting. But sometimes you can't, that's okay. Sometimes the obvious thing is the easiest thing and the best thing, and that's okay too. Another thing that'll happen a lot in this game is I will ask you lots of questions. I've already started, and it's going to get even more as we start. And that's because so much of this game is about reflection and facing things about your character and answering questions about your character and getting inside your character's head. And one of the best ways we can do that is for me to pose questions to you. And again, sometimes the most obvious answer is the best answer. Sometimes you need a minute, and that's okay. But just be prepared to answer questions. That's the thing we're going to be doing. And there are a few other little things that we'll kind of talk about as we go. One important rules thing is you cannot do combat with monstrosities. You can do combat with people, but anybody above a person, you die automatically. So don't do it. You can do combat for the purposes of escaping, but not winning. So that's an important distinction. And I think that's all I've got. So I'm going to introduce the incursion, and then we're going to take a little break. And when we get back from the break, we'll do the first ring. But for now, let's do the introduction. A warm and pleasant hum. The human world has room for many monarchs, but the humming woods has only one queen. This six-legged mother of millions dines exclusively on an elixir said to cure any ill or even extend one's life, a royal jelly of matchless quality. Few dare attempt to steal any jelly, protected as it is by the swarms that live in her remote hive. This hive is called the sixth-form heart. But what if one had grander dreams than that of a waxed sack containing purloin jelly? If one can claim the queen, one can control her enormous six-legged family and the wealth their industry represents. The denizens of the sixth-form heart have a loyalty that is pheromone-fueled and absolute, and the venomous means to protect their home and monarch. But that is not going to stop you. You are going into it. Maybe to get the jelly, maybe to get the queen and control of the hive, but we'll find out the exact details. And we'll also find out how you all know each other and how you all got in together as well. But we'll do all that when we get back in the first ring. Let's take a 5-minute break. As a reminder, while we're on break, if you'll go to the chat and hit the drop down to just me and tell me your lines and veils, that would be great. So let's take 5. Ring 1. The treasure hunters approach the humming woods. Although really, we're going to go back even further. The treasure hunters are trying to find the humming woods. I think that's where we're going to start. And based on your skill set, who do you suppose of the three of you was most likely to be navigating to the humming woods? Who either knew the way or is leading the way?
I'm guessing that would be me.
Indeed, and that is because you have paths. Very good. So a question I have for you is, you've never been to the humming woods,
No.
but there is something, a geographical feature in the landscape that is going to tell you that you are on the right path, that you're going in the right direction. Something natural, something man-made, something historical, something mythical, maybe. Be thinking on what it is. I'll come back to you. And that means one of the two of you, Kiva and Osto, are the scout, scouting ahead, looking for trouble, making sure that the way is clear. Between the two of you, I'm guessing that's probably Kiva, but I don't know. What do we think?
That would seem to make sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Kiva, a question for you. What on the journey to the humming woods, not bees yet, bees will be a problem later, but on the journey to the humming woods, what are you worried about running into? Like, what's the thing you're keeping your eyes open for in particular? Think on it.
Okay.
And Osto, we're going to say that you are responsible for maintaining camp. And my question for you is this. Between your companions, Kiva and Moradai, one of them does something on a regular basis that you find to be extremely annoying. I'd like to know what that is. The other one does something surprisingly endearing. I'd like to know what that is too. I'm going to swing back over to Moradai. So Moradai, what's this geographical landmark, this feature?
I think there are not incredibly obvious, but not infrequent sort of deposits of a amber-ish stone, not a precious stone, but something that I would notice and that I've discovered through whatever means that follow the gradient of that, and the more you see, the closer you are.
So you'll start to see more of this like amber, like these formations in the terrain, I guess, right?
Yeah.
That's interesting. What's the biggest or most startling creature you found trapped in one of the larger amber deposits?
I think so far it was a grown stag had the rear, the bottom part of one of the rear legs encased in it.
Oh, nice. And the stag just died on the spot.
It didn't die on the spot, but it clearly had been struggling, and the ground had been disturbed, and it had been a while, but it eventually had just fallen of exhaustion, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I meant. Like it just eventually died. Yeah. It didn't go anywhere. Interesting. I'm curious, you being a flockless shepherd and maybe having some sort of connection to animals sort of fundamentally or inherently, I'm curious if you did anything to I don't know, see the stag on its way or memorialize it in some way?
I'm not sure that I did, because it's a wild animal, and I figure its spirit or soul is its own. It's not kept. So when it died, it was able to go free on its own.
Oh, I like it. That's good. Yeah. Huh. Well, that's so interesting because that reminds me of the gesh placed on you by the Witch of Navask. I'm curious what happened to you the last time you thought about abandoning the animals. What put you back on the path?
I think I was visited by the Witch of Navask in a not a sleeping dream, but sort of like half in between waking and sleeping dream. That part of the she just assumed that I would have gone along with it because of who she was, and now that I was like, maybe it's just not going to happen, and I'll go my way. In the vision, she told me that if I die before the gesh is completed, that my soul belongs to her. And I think that's why I'm going after the nectar, to prolong my life, to continue on.
To continue your quest, or to satisfy the gesh. Good, thank you, Kiva. What's this? What are you most worried about running into on the journey? This initial leg of the journey, anyway. Oh, you're muted, Kai.
That often happens. We are coming up on a swamp pretty soon, and it has this thick miasma. And while it's not impossible to get through, if you stay in the miasma for a long time, it will twist and warp you. And there are these twisted and warped animals in the swamp that might get enraged if they see us.
I love it. Almost like annihilation, kind of, right? Yeah, good. So when you're getting ready to make camp, I'm curious, Kiva, what do you do to make sure that none of these animals from the nearby swamp wander into your camp, or to where you're at least warned of them should they come?
They are afraid of fire, and so I set torches as a perimeter around the camp.
Good. I love it. Thank you. Speaking of camp, the Humming Woods is not yet in sight. You do have to make camp, Osto, and you're responsible for that. And I think at this point, you have all been on a journey together for about 3 days. I'd like to get a sense of, and it's okay if we keep it kind of vague. I'm okay with vague, but I do want to get a sense of how you all came together. Like, what was the thing that drew you together in particular to go to the Humming Woods? Did you know each other before? Is this just a convenience thing? Like you're all going in the same direction? Did you meet on the road? Possibly. I'll let you begin that conversation though, Osto. What do you think?
I can definitely see that Moradai and I would want to have brought Kiva along because we need the protection. We need somebody who's skilled with weapons, and we know this is a dangerous place, so perhaps we promised her payment of some kind.
Very good.
Or a share of the treasure.
So Kiva, sell sword. This makes sense. Kiva, does that fit your version of things?
Yeah, I imagined that she had been doing this for maybe a couple of years, and none of the halls were getting her much more than her bare life taken care of. So when they came to her with something big, like that was the ticket.
Nice. So Moradai, I'll let you answer the question. How do you know Osto?
I think Osto was probably the first one who had it in his mind to go after this treasure, and was seeking someone to help him find it, since there's no clear path. And there I was.
So this is a relationship of convenience then, more or less,
yeah,
for the three of you. Yeah, it's good. Ripe for turning on each other because you don't owe each other anything. So good. Let's kind of get that wheel spinning. Osto, one of your companions does something you find to be incredibly annoying. What is it?
I think maybe I'm just going by the illustration Kiva is using here, and I think she's quite a proud and haughty looking figure, and maybe I find her I suspect she's a little vain, or a little full of herself. She takes some degree of care in her appearance, whereas Moradai and I are more kind of roughly dressed and simply dressed. I think Osto is someone who prizes simplicity and humbleness in people, and Kiva, he suspects, is perhaps, she has this rather showy mask, and she has some fine looking clothes, and I think he just thinks she's a little bit fancy and full of herself.
I mean, she came from court life. Whether you two know that or not is, we know as players. Kiva, have you let either of these two see behind the mask?
Yeah, this isn't the Mandalorian. Like once we got far enough away from town, like I don't have to wear the mask anymore.
Oh, okay. So you do take it off then? Okay.
Yeah. I figure it was more just a recognition thing.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I like that. Good. Well, so back to you, Osto. One of the companions, presumably Moradai, does something you find to be surprisingly endearing. That's a loaded description, but yeah. So what is it?
Yeah, I was interested in the idea that Moradai is a former shepherd, and I noticed his skill at soothing there. So I imagine that Moradai, as he goes about his business, kind of, he's making these slight, not muttering exactly, but like cooing and whistling, almost like he's calling to his sheep or soothing them as they trying to settle them down. And he does this almost habitually under his breath a lot of the time. And whereas a lot of people might find it annoying, I think Oster appreciates it because it's almost like he's chanting a mantra or something. You know, it's Oster sees something of the connection with nature there and the spirituality that brings out.
I love it. Camp. I don't think I want a scene yet. I think I want to just go straight to sleeping. Or at least a scene between you all. Who's on watch? Who's the first watch?
I think I'll be on first watch.
Okay. So Moradai, you know, I only need 2 watches, so you've got like maybe 3 or 4 hours to kill here. What do you do to pass the time?
I think in between singing my little songs myself, probably carving small animals out of wood, whatever fall happens to be on the ground, the small whittling knife. I think what I'm working right now, I'm working on that a little wooden image of that stag. It's the last notable animal I saw.
I love it. While you're on watch, you can see Kiva's perimeter of torches. That's, there's that light, and then there's the light of your actual campfire as well. And beyond the torch perimeter, you hear something rustling in the soft grass. It's kind of wet, so it's kind of like a sticky, slushy sound, because you are sort of like passing by a swamp at this point. I'm curious what you do.
I think I just stop my fiddling and pay more attention to see if it comes into the light or gets closer.
You hear a voice that says, "Help me, I'm drowning. Help me, I'm drowning."
I call out to it, say, "Hello, who's there?"
"Help me, I'm drowning."
And walk closer to the perimeter of the torches, see if I can see anything in the light. Probably step past it so that the light's behind me.
You see the most bedraggled goat you've ever seen just outside the perimeter of the torchlight. The creature is, well, twisted. You can see its rib cage is almost makes like a set of wings stretching its skin, and the legs are sort of all like gangly and jangly, and the head just lolls to the side, and it just keeps repeating, "Help me, I'm drowning." What do you do?
Does it look like it is in trouble itself,
It's
or
not,
that's
no.
just a call? Yeah,
No,
it's not.
no.
It's not actually. Yeah, just repeating that. Great.
And but it won't go past the torchlight.
Yeah.
And also make a ruin roll as well, please.
All right.
So you'll just roll /ruin.
That's it.
Yep.
2.
What's your current ruin?
3.
Okay, so your ruin doesn't go up because it's lower than 3. But I'm curious how you feel as you look at this creature, this poor, benighted creature.
I think that I feel bad for it, and my instinct is to go and at the very least put it out of its misery. But I know that Kiva was very adamant that we stay inside the perimeter, and would probably be furious that I've stepped outside even this far. And so it's kind of a internal struggle between both helping it and quieting it, because it might draw something else. But I take a step back closer to the torches, And I clutch my ineffective little carving knife a little bit closer.
It's definitely not getting any quieter. It just keeps sort of like repeating its lament. But it is no danger as far as you can tell, except the chance that it might lure something that cares less about the torches, or wakes your companions. There's that possibility as well. Do you just leave it be?
I think after hearing that after a minute it doesn't quiet down, I think I go and actually wake Kiva, and you're the tough one. You're the one with a sword. It looks like. I'll go. You can hear it. It's an animal. It's twisted, like you said. It's going to draw something else. I'm sure of it, and it will definitely keep me awake. Do something. I'll come with you, but I can't do it myself.
She stretches, stands up, checks her hair, picks up the sword, and walks with you. And she says, "You couldn't take care of a goat?"
That's not a goat. That's something else.
The goat's lament changes. Kiva, I'm drowning.
You didn't say it was calling my name, or did I?
It wasn't before.
I want you both to take ruin rolls. You again, Moradai, since it started saying Kiva's name. Kiva, I'm drowning. Just / ruin on the die roller.
2.
Okay.
Where's
My
this going?
ruin goes up by 1 from
Indeed
2
it
to
does.
3.
Yeah, go ahead and make that change. I'm curious how you feel about the goat seeming to A, know your name, and seems to be calling out to you specifically to come outside the torch circle. Like, what are you thinking right now?
I thought for a tiny moment I could just scare it and make it run away, but now I think it has to die. So I pull out my sword and I start walking forward.
I like it.
And I stay close to the torches and watch.
Killing it's no problem. You can do it. I don't need a die roll or anything. But I am curious, Kiva. Did you, in the past, maybe when you were younger, maybe something with your brother, did you all experience a drowning?
Close. There was a current, and my brother was like, the beach was, he was trying to swim back towards the beach, but the current was just taking him out further and further. And so eventually I got to him, and like he had this death grip around my neck. I got us back to shore, but it was, a quarter mile away from where we had started. It was frightening, very frightening.
You put the goat down, no problem. And its cries cease. And you can reset the watch, and the night will go by more or less unremarkably, except because your ruin went up, Kiva, you are going to get what's called a condition.
Oh, okay.
Conditions are things that they are ways that the incursion, the environment, this land is changing you. They are frequently physical, sometimes they're psychological or both, magical, often. But essentially, they're just like sort of role-playing prompts. And the more ruin you get, the worse these conditions can get, or I can pile on new conditions. It can also have an effect on your future actions if it would have an effect. And I think you'll notice it, Kiva, either if you take the second watch or just before you fall back asleep on this night, you'll notice that there's a change. And I will tell you what that is momentarily. I'm going to look at my list here.
I don't think Moradai is going back to sleep.
Fair enough. Let's take a look at conditions. Oh, interesting. You find yourself compelled to decorate yourself with blooming plants, sweet soil, petals, anything that would attract the attention of insects. I'm curious, in what small way do we see this? What do you do to make yourself attractive to insects right now, Kiva? Something that the others wouldn't notice.
Under my cloak, where there's kind of like a pockety bulge, I will. Mordai, do you think you're watching like afterward, or do you think you turn around at some point?
I think I'm on watch, but I'm not like paying close attention to you.
Okay. I think I take some flowers.
Definitely shaken as well. Yeah.
Gotcha. I think I take the flowers and I think I rub them in the blood a little bit of the goat, and then I just tuck it into my pocket under my cloak.
Nice. The rest of the night goes by without incident. And the next morning, you continue on your journey. You strike the camp, Osto. Seems like your companions are not very well rested. But in any case, this is where we are. Continuing on. You see the humming woods in the distance. You are very close to the tree line, probably 1/8 of a mile or so away. And you're all back together. You've maybe Kiva did some scouting, but you're all back together now as you're kind of approaching the forest. And you see a group of people dressed as apiarists, as beekeepers. Their faces are covered with mesh attached to sort of like wide-brimmed hats, right? And the mesh is like a veil that goes over them. There are 3 of them, and they are trying to chase down their pack horse, which is panicked. The horse has a mesh mask similar around its head as well, but it's askew. You can't quite see the horse well, but the horse is like kind of going crazy. And you do see a few bees humming here or buzzing here and there. And one of the beekeepers sees you and he calls out to you, Osto. He says, "Please help us get this animal under control." What do you do, Osto?
I think Osto knows exactly how to handle the situation. He will take, some kind of root vegetable or something from our supplies, and head toward the horse, making soothing noises, and he will attempt to use his bewitch ritual to instruct this horse to be calm and be still, and see if he can bring it back under control.
I love that idea. It's a great idea. Regrettably, the incursion doesn't care about that idea. The horse, as you get ready to do this, you notice that the horse is, its eyes are yellow and running a thick pus. Its face has been stinged all over. It's puffy. And the creature is clearly heavily envenomed and in pain. And they're losing control of it. And it slides down a steep ravine near where they're at. And the beekeepers all cry out, "No, no, that's all of our equipment." And then they turn to you all and say, "You look well equipped. Are you going into the Humming Woods?"
We are, but we go into the Humming Woods on our own business. Our equipment is our own.
And you can see that one of them has drawn a short sword and is hiding it badly behind their beekeeper's veil. And they are approaching you cautiously, carefully. Kiva, this is probably your business, but in any case, what do the three of you do? And also make a ruin roll, Osto, for seeing the horse in its dire state.
My ruin goes up by 1.
We'll talk about your condition later, but I'm curious how you feel right now.
Yeah, I think from a distance, it wasn't obvious what had happened to this horse, and it looked, Osto's wondering how they expected to ever be able to bring this animal under control, given what they'd obviously let happen to it. And, what kind of protection do they have against the bees that none of them are hurt and just the horse was hurt? It's pretty disturbing.
So these three are approaching you. They're clearly threatening. They want your stuff. They are determined to get into the Humming Woods, just like you are. Kiva, what are you going to do to stop them?
Gentle lords, gentle lords. I would think a little bit further ahead than where you are. You see what you think is an easy mark. But I know that given just a moment's thought, you would see a little bit more. And you would realize that as strong and talented as you all are, you will not all survive what you're about to do. And I'm trying to use flattery.
Yeah, I like it. Almost like a reverse flattery, right? It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do a risk roll. So you, the goals here are obvious. You want them to back off, right? And the second thing we have to do is figure out your dice. And so you get 1 light die for using flattery. I'm totally into that. I think especially combined with your, you look athletic and well-armed. I think you're getting that light die. You get a 2nd light die if you accept a devil's bargain from either Rob, Mark, or myself. And here I speak about us as players because that's important. It's a meta thing. And so a reminder, Rob and Mark, a devil's bargain is something that happens in the fiction no matter what. And if Kai takes it, then they get an extra die, but the thing happens. So any offers?
Does Dark have the help roll, or is it just gold?
Dark does have the help roll, but in order for the help roll to trigger, a dark die has to be in the initial roll.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
We haven't gotten there yet. So, but let's talk about Devil's Bargains. So, any Devil's Bargains yet? Any thoughts? I'll kick off. My offer is, no matter what, one of these beekeepers is currently a hive.
Oh God. Okay.
So if you want that, you can take. If you want that, if you're okay with that, you can have my die. But maybe Rob or Mark has a different offer.
I was going to go with the basic, no matter what, your sword is broken or lost somehow.
Wow. Okay.
Your
It's
defenseless.
rough, but yeah, both of ours are rough actually. Maybe Rob has something gentler.
I was thinking that maybe one of these beekeepers is known to Kiva
Oh,
somehow.
somebody from
Maybe,
the past.
yeah, somebody from the past, maybe connected with her brother.
Well, that could be good. That could be interesting. 3 interesting options. 1 very interesting. 2 very rough. Which do you want, Kai? You can reject them all too. By the way, you don't have to take any of them.
Right. I think I'd like to answer Osto's questions to himself and say that there's a hive amongst one of them.
Good. And so, or one of them is a hive. My exact offer is one of them is a hive. So, I love it. 2 light dice. And I don't think a dark die is in play yet. Normally you do a dark die automatically if you're risking your mind or body, but at this point, they're not really a danger. They're just trying to like scare you, and you might be more scary than them. And so that's just kind of where we're at. Now, if it came to a fight, maybe it would be that, but so we'll say 2 light dice for now. And so you can roll /risk 2.
2 3s.
Okay, so 3 means you fail, and they are not going to be scared off. You can add a dark die right now to get a reroll if you wish. In which case you would roll /risk 2 1. But if the dark die is higher than your current ruin, your ruin goes up.
Got it. I think I'll fail.
Very good. One of them says behind their veil, "You are indeed well armed, my lady, and you are perhaps even better at feats of arms than any of us, perhaps even more than all of us put together. But we must reach the humming wood. We have no choice, and such desperation forces men and women alike to extremes that they would not otherwise contemplate. And they are moving forward, but one of them stops the other 2 and says, 'Brothers, it is too late. We will not reach the humming woods in time.' And he falls down. 'The mother of millions' curse will not be lifted. She has the best of us. She has the best of me. There will be no entreating with her this day.' And you then see bees crawling out of his mouth, out of his pouring down his cheeks and neck and shoulders as the veil falls to the side. And his eyes are wide with terror as just bees are pouring out. And eventually you can see little speckles of blood on his shirt as the bees force their way out of his skin. They are exiting every part of his body, and they are forming a great, terrible swarm of bees. The other two men run. Moradai and Osto, what do you do? Also, ruin rolls for everybody, please. Ruin rolls across the table.
Mine goes up by 1.
Kiva's is okay. Osto's okay. Moradai, how are you feeling right now?
Panicked. I don't think he had thought this far ahead. The stories were necessarily true, and this probably confirms that he has signed up for more than he had initially planned for, and I think he's just I think he just breaks into a run, and I don't know which direction.
Probably a wise move.
Yeah, he doesn't know either. He's just like, yeah, and bolts.
You can just run. I don't need a die roll. Osto, what do you do?
I think something fairly similar, but all the while kind of cursing at these beekeepers who have indulged in such treachery, and kind of shaking his fist at them as he runs.
And Kiva, what do you do? Just to make the situation more complicated, I will tell you that the other beekeepers that ran dropped their packs on the ground. It's near the swarm of bees, but they did have some things in their hands. Who knows what? They're just like sacks, really. You can tell there's something in them.
Yeah, I'll go for the bags.
Here, I needed a risk roll. Getting the bags without getting stung horribly. Oh, I forgot one step in the risk roll. We're supposed to say what we think could go wrong. And here's a good opportunity to do that now. What could go wrong here, Moradai or Mark or Rob? Any thoughts?
I mean, beyond the obvious. I think what could go wrong is that what is in the sacks is not useful gear, but something bad related to the hive.
Interesting. That won't necessarily be that. I'm just taking
Yeah.
input here. I think the obvious thing is just you get stung really terribly, right? I mean, I think that's probably the most obvious thing. Could be even worse. Maybe you become a hive. I don't know. Rob, what do you think?
I think that given that this group of beekeepers were so adamant that they needed their equipment, that they lost with the horse, this last bit of remaining equipment they have is extremely important to them, and they're going to defend it very assiduously.
Well, they might have to come back for it because they ran too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if they see Kiva moving toward it, they're going to protect it.
Yeah. Okay, we'll see. So let's talk about dice, Kiva. You've got one light die for athletics, I think, probably straightforward. Devil's bargains again. Back to the devil's bargain mill here. Mark or Rob, any offers?
No matter what happens, your hands are stung and swollen very badly, making it difficult to hold bags, weapons, anything.
Got it.
I kind of I might second that. I want to hear what Rob says though. If anything, it's okay. If not.
Yeah, I was wondering if there's something in one of the bags that kind of attaches itself to Kiva in some way secretly. That I don't know if there's some kind of baby, what do you call the grubs of the bees or
I
something?
kind of know where you're
burrows
going with
into
that.
him, or
I kind of know where you're going with that. I'm going to say no matter what, one of the sacks contains a very special bee. Probably how this group got into the trouble they got in the first place. It sounded like they were trying to get to the Hummingwoods to like apologize and have the bees extracted from the one guy.
I don't want any of the devil's bargains.
You've got one light die, and I think a dark die is automatic here because of the nature of what you're doing, because you're definitely risking your body. So do a light die and a dark die for now, and then if somebody wants to help you, they can, but we'll see how your die roll goes initially.
Okay.
So risk 1/1.
So like 1 space 1?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, success. For the complication, I'm just going to lean into, well, your ruin's going up for one thing. For the complication, I'm going to just lean into the kind of what Mordai was, or what Mark was saying as a failed condition or as a devil's bargain. I'm just going to say that, like, until you're able to take some time to treat your hands, they are stung up and swollen, but you're otherwise okay. And you do get your hands on the bags. But give us the scene for now. What does it look like?
So I think the reason why I get so stung up is like I take my gloves off, and like as I get closer to the body, I'm just kind of pulsing with fire with my Kindle ritual, and just like pushing and pushing with the hot air and the flames. And then as I go for the bags, then all of the bees that have been pushed back like zoom back in and go for the hands, which hurts a lot. But I'm cursing. I'm cursing a bit. But I think unless something else happens, I think I get out of there with the bags.
Yeah, I think that's great. So your dark die was 5, which means your ruin goes up by 1. And I think that puts you at 4 or 5. Does that put you at
4?
4? Okay.
4.
When it goes up to 5, you have an opportunity to lower it, but not yet. But you did get what's in the bags. Let's talk about that. Once you have a moment to sort of breathe, there's a few things. One of the bags contains a vial of antivenom. Could be helpful. It's labeled. That same bag has a crude map with 3 great circles where the 6-form heart hive might be in the Hummingwoods, and notes on scouting bees, their paths and schedules. And on the back of this map, there's a drawing of a bee wearing a leash like a guide hound. But the map could be helpful in terms of navigating the deeper parts of the woods. And then the other bag has a stinger the size of a human hand from some enormous and monstrous variety of bee.
Jeez.
So you can note those things as you wish.
Okay, I'll write that down.
Yeah, however you want to. And let me just sort of dip back into the incursion a bit. You are getting close to the Hummingwoods. You are starting to feel very warm. You are starting to have the quite heady smell of flowers. 2 of you are getting conditions, which I'll reveal when we get back. And Kiva's condition might be getting worse. And in the distance, you hear a constant, heavy drone of buzzing. As you step into the tree line. And so passes ring 1. We shall take a 5-minute break and do ring 2. Ring 2. You have entered the outer tree line of the Humming Woods into the forest proper. And you stumble on a few signs that you should perhaps not be going in here, in case you needed further indication or further signs of this. One, for example, one of the trees has been carved with an arrow pointing in the other direction. The arrow highlighted by the amber-colored sap of the tree. At another point, you see a fingernail embedded in tree bark. And at one point, the sun is blotted out entirely as a massive, thick swarm of bees flies high overhead. Blots it out completely, but eventually passes. Moradai, you're getting a condition. You have become convinced that the only way to survive this expedition is if you disguise yourself as a bee, whether that mean creating mud stripes across your body or something else. That is what you are. That's what's happening to you. And Osto, yours is fairly straightforward so far, right? Or just fairly simple to start. But you absolutely crave sugar. I'm curious. I'd like to have the scene with just the three of you. And Kiva, yours is getting deeper. I think you were going to have to start doing more overt applications of flowers and other bee attractors to your body. So.
I'm sorry, was it Osto that's craving sugar?
Yes,
Right.
Osto, yes. I'd like to just have the scene with the three of you sort of like coming off what you just experienced, getting into the forest, seeing the things you've seen, and maybe show us how you're leaning into your conditions here. Role play.
I think maybe makes sense that like once we got into the tree line, we sort of hunkered down in some place that doesn't look too dire to sort of regroup and collect ourselves a little bit.
Yeah, I think Osto looks up as the swarm of bees goes overhead and takes note of the direction they're going and says to the others, "Such industrious creatures, very admirable. It's humble, so hardworking."
And I think as we pause for a moment, Mordai takes off his wool coat / cloak he wears, and maybe we've kept some of the coals from the fire or something to carry with us next time we camp. And I think I use some of those to start drawing horizontal lines on my white wool cloak.
I'd love to know how everybody's feeling about that.
Trying to blend in.
So I'm drinking from a wine skin, and it's a very sweet wine. And I hand it over to Asta, and I look at Mordai and I'm like, do you think this camouflage will work? I'm just really confused.
He sort of like gestures to like his mostly like white and cream colored, and he has a little fur hat as well. It's like this. I don't know what attracts these insects or other creatures, but I'd rather watch these when we return than take the chance of being seen.
This is not how camouflage works. Throw that out there.
Especially for bees.
I think Osto's eyes are going between the two of them, but he's sucking quite intently on this wine, which is surprisingly delicious and sweet, and just what he's craving right about now.
I've stood up, and I'm walking around the tree that we're near, and I'm picking flowers and I'm putting them in my hair. I lock my mask on my hip. I probably won't be wearing it now. There's probably no one else that will see me. So, and so I've got a small piece of silvered metal or whatever, so that I can look at myself with my flowers in my hair.
I just imagine, like, as this gets worse and worse, there's some sort of like Midsommar situation where Kiva is just like, the mask is covered in flowers or something,
Right.
Good. I love it. So you're sort of, you have your little breather. You're behaving in your strange ways. And you continue on. And eventually the trees give way to a large floodplain. And you can see the deeper, true heart of the forest beyond the floodplain, but you have to cross this floodplain to get to it. I think the map even indicates the presence of the floodplain, so you were sort of expecting it. The floodplain is a riot of color due to flowering plants that are taking advantage of the sort of precipitation. Their stalks are sort of poking skyward, well above the waterline. Some of these plants, they're so big and full and tall that they actually like are taller than you. They look past head height. The tricky thing about navigating this particular space is that the root systems underneath these colorful plants and flowers makes it a little treacherous to walk, and it makes the progress quite slow. And something about the swaying petals and fronds also causes you to fall into this like drowsy state where you might even like start to lose track of each other. But at the outset, the tricky part is just navigating this tough, this tough undergrowth, this root systems, and it's wet, right? Like the water's like, like knee high. Osto, what do you do to sort of help with this, or how are you getting through this sort of like tricky navigation? Or Moradai, since you have paths.
Yeah, I think Osto is looking toward Moradai as the guide here.
Yeah,
Osto is quite captivated by the colors and the light. He saw the inside of a stone prison for so long that this is quite a wondrous environment to him.
Yeah, I think Mordai's focus is sort of maintaining focus on the task at hand. And I think whenever he starts feeling dreamy or drowsy, scoops up a couple handfuls of water and just like splashes them over his head and face. And when I do that, kind of like look back, like, I'm not telling you to do this, but I'm doing it. I probably know what I'm doing. Yeah, just like trying to see if I can see anything past, if the sky is obscured, to sort of make sure we're on the right track via the sun or whatnot.
Kiva, I can't emphasize enough the sort of the heaviness, the languidness, you might even imagine like, Dorothy and her companions, running through the poppies. It's that kind of situation, right? Where you're getting drowsy. You almost want to tarry, right? I'm curious what you do to sort of stay on task, stay focused.
Well, at first, I'm not. I'm walking, and my fingers are just kind of tracing the water, and my memory flows back to that time at the beach with my brother. Nothing's gone wrong yet. We're just having fun. It's warm, and like the flowers kind of look like people around me. So just that's going on. And then that sharp memory of him grabbing onto me, and I kind of startle awake. And I curse to myself, and I keep his voice in my head, him crying out to be saved, and try to use that to snap through the drowsiness.
I love it. Thank you. Osto, there is a story, a legend, myth, rumor, whatever, connecting this particular floodplain and its wild, riotous, colorful flowers and the swirling court. What is it?
I think perhaps that the swirling court involves the pollen and the insects and the kind of seed heads of all these wonderful plants kind of swirling in the winds above this plain. And if you look at it with the right kind of eyes, you can see the patterns in there, and you can see the spirits moving amongst those swirling insects and petals and seeds.
Mordai, on this journey, do you seek the cure of the royal jelly or the power that comes with controlling the hive?
The cure, for sure.
What are you hoping to cure?
I want to prolong my life long enough to complete my get my back together, which may take a very, very long time.
What does the Witch of Navas hope you'll do?
I think she hopes that I'll give up and just die of old age in not too many years.
Interesting.
And I think also more importantly than that, I think what she actually wants is for me to be afraid of what will happen in the intervening years.
Osto, what's going to help you get in the swirling court, the cure or the power?
I think the cure, there's something about using the royal jelly, ingesting it, Maybe it has hallucinatory powers or something that will enable Osto to see that which is hidden from normal eyes in the forest and the plain.
Kiva, you've probably at this point heard these two talking about what they hope to find at the heart of the woods. This is not, maybe this is just doing a job, but I'm curious, are you starting to have some thoughts about the heart of the woods and whether you might get your hands on royal jelly or maybe even the queen to take control of the hive?
I'm starting to think that while these two fight over the jelly, that I'm going to find something better, something that'll, not only save my brother, but set us up for life. I'm starting to think about the words honey merchant in my mind, how it rings, Kiva, honey merchant, Kiva mead, that kind of thing. So, yeah. Daydreaming.
I love it. It's the perfect time to daydream. Mordai, some creatures rustling around among the flower stalks, navigating with ease while you flounder. What is it?
I think it's something like a large skink, like a largish snake-y lizard with a few legs that looks like a snake, but is not smooth instead of scaled. That's probably 2 or 3 feet long and kind of goes between the stalks and dips under the water and comes back up. Seems to be very at home. It's bluish green.
Nice. At a certain point, you all realize that you have become separated. You know what general direction you're moving in, but you've managed to lose sight of each other. And you're not even sure when you lost sight of each other. You just were quite suddenly aware that you are no longer in sight of the other two. Osto, what do you do when you realize this?
Osto takes the wineskin that he got from Kiva earlier that he's drained every drop of, and kind of takes a look at that and turns around in the field, wondering whether his head is fuzzy from the wine or from the power of the spirits in this plane. I think after a couple of moments of turning around, he just calls out, "Kiva, Moradai, where are you? I've become separated."
Osto, you will notice up ahead a quite large bee. It is about the size of a dog. And it's by itself. And it's currently vomiting a quite large amount of golden, luscious honey onto the grass. You can smell the sugar from here. And I think you have to have it in your body. What do you do?
Osto drops the wineskin that's forgotten already and just moves quietly towards this creature that he feels unthreatened by, and kneels down next to it and reaches out with a finger, looking at the bee all the while to see how it will react. Reaches out with a finger and scoops some of the honey into his mouth.
The bee, you're kneeling down, right? The bee clambers close to you, puts its forelimbs on your shoulders, and begins to try to feed you the honey from its mouth. Do you accept it?
Yes.
We'll rue it.
Three. So my rune does not go up.
How do you feel?
I think Osto's starting to feel a oneness with this bee, with this creature. You know, he had some trepidation about what he might find here in this mysterious forest, but you know, it seems to him now that these creatures mean him no harm, that they're friendly, they are hardworking and produce honey that they're glad to share with the likes of him.
Moradai, you're not aware of any of that because you're also separated from the group. You are starting to, the pollen in the air is starting to get to you. In fact, you are starting to have a very powerful allergic reaction to the pollen in the air. You can feel your chest seizing, your throat closing up. What do you do?
At first, I try to call out to Osto because I know he has that anti-venom. I don't know if it would do good against allergies, but that's the only thing you can think of. And then when there's no answer, I think
Kiva had it, but yeah.
Oh yeah, even worse. going to the wrong person. I think he kind of gets down, kneeling around on fours in the water and just starts trying to drink, even though it may not help. It feels like it would do something.
Let's have a risk roll. Rob and Kai, what could go wrong here if Mark fails the die roll?
I think as he's scooping up water, he's sucking so much pollen with it that this allergic reaction just becomes worse. And as he drinks this pollen-soaked water down, his throat just starts to swell up internally and choke him.
Yeah, I think it would probably kill you. I mean, I think you could probably die pretty straightforwardly here. Any other thoughts, Kai?
Distracted with the water, the skink sneaks up and stings Moradai.
And you really need that anti-venom, right? So let's talk about the dice. Do you have a skill that would be relevant to the situation?
I don't know if foraging would do.
Convince me. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not convinced myself. So,
unless you could say that like there was like a particular type of, I don't know, like something in the forest that could
looking for something that would have soothing properties.
As you've described it, though, you're just trying to like keep your
I'm just trying
throat
to
open.
Maybe soothing. Does that soothing?
Oh,
myself?
soothing. Oh, soothing. Yeah. I like soothing.
That makes sense.
Soothing yourself. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So you got one light die. Devil's Bargains. Something that'll happen no matter what, whether pass or fail. Rob and Guy, what do you think?
The thing that comes to mind is that, this pollen that he's breathing in and having a reaction to, something of it takes root inside of his body.
That's pretty good.
Does it have to be directly related to what he's doing? Or
No, not directly. It could just be something in the fiction. Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking something like a flash storm comes in and the water gets really high.
Oh, that's
much
good.
higher than the knees.
I'll second that one. I like that one. You got two offers.
There's a floodplain after all, which makes sense.
I like that, but I think I'm going to go I want something to take root. I think
Okay.
that makes sense.
2 light dice. Dark die obviously is going to happen here because your body is in peril. So risk 2-1. Go for it.
Dark 5.
Dark 5. You're going to survive, but the complication is going to be that, and you have to stop here because the dark is high. The complication is going to be that you are basically, your companions are going to find you, and you are going to be like unable to kind of like for the next little bit of the journey, you're going to be like kind of like they're going to have to like carry you or whatever because you're like, you know, you're weak or drained or something, right? We'll figure out what it looks like, but you're going to be sort of helpless for a little bit. So, and looks like your ruin is going up as well.
Yes.
Okay, to what?
5.
So you are now eligible for betrayals. Good. But you succeed. You save your life. How does it look?
I think I do kind of pass out from lack of oxygen and go face down in the water for a little while. But whatever takes hold of me from the pollen in the air, I don't know if it rolls me over or guides me to a place so it can continue to work on my living body. But that's it somehow, while I'm unconscious, guides my body to a place of relative safety.
I like where this is going. I'm gonna take it from there if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Kiva, you do manage to come upon Moradai. You manage to find Moradai. You meet back up with Moradai. It is under rather extreme circumstances. There is a large many-stalked flower that is animated and moving and has twisted its flower limbs around Moradai, and you see Moradai tangled up in it, and you just see like this sort of long, fuzzy proboscis or thing down.
A stamen.
Stamen, thank you. Down Moradai's throat. You just see the stamen moving down, and Moradai is just there. What do you do?
Oh Lord. Well, at first I'm just stunned. Like, this is beyond what I thought a flower could flip into, right? Like,
I'm probably gonna make you roll ruin in a minute too. Yeah.
Right. Like, it's like, we're coming here for bees. Bees are the problem. Bees are the problem. Then all of a sudden these flowers are just like catching me off guard. And I can't like cut at the plant. My hands are still too hurt from the bee stings from before. But I push through the pain and I grab the stamen and I'm trying to rip it out of his mouth and throat. And then if I can, like, put my arm up under him and just kind of pull him away as best I can. I don't know if I'm strong enough to do it, but especially in this water, it's gonna be very difficult.
Yeah. The flower doesn't give much resistance, probably because it already did what it needed to do. But the flower will slink off and kind of resubmerge itself in the water. I would like for you to roll ruin though upon seeing this though. So Kiva, give me a ruin. You're good.
I'm good.
Let's just have that moment between the two of you, if we could. I like that. Just with Mordai sort of like weakened, but recovered, and Kiva having pulled you to safety.
Yeah, I think I'm still in kind of like a semi-dream hallucinatory state. I don't think I recognized that what was happening to me. I was kind of floating on a cloud of pollen to safety when I come to, and I'm just completely disoriented as I look up at Kiva.
I'm like checking all over your body to see if you have any other injuries. Like, I'm just really afraid that something else happened to you. I have no idea that the thing in your mouth was actually doing something, right? I took care of that problem. So I'm looking for other problems. And I'm like, Mordai, do you hurt? Are you bleeding?
I need the antitoxin from Osto. I can't breathe.
And so she rips her pack off her back and goes to the pouch where the anti-venom is, and she looks at it, and she's like, "Are you sure?"
It's only one use.
Yep. It's the pollen. It's gotten to me. I need something.
And so she does what she's been paid to do these things. So she pops it and like gives it to him, and she's like, "Well, drink deeply then."
Mordai, you can lower your ruin by 1. And you are no longer enfeebled. You can function normally. But that was also your anti-venom use. is now
Probably
now
not what it was for, but yeah.
It worked well enough in this case, though. Asta, I'm curious what's going on with you and that bee at this point. Since you were sharing a treat last time we saw you.
Yeah, I think Osto is the craving he's feeling for sugar is just not dissipating. So he's, happy to keep going as long as this bee will let him. And I think maybe there comes a point, he's kneeling down and this tipping his head back, and the bee is over him, and maybe at some point he even reaches his arms up to embrace the bee's head, as he just continues to drink this honey down.
Eventually, the bee has nothing left to give, and the giving bee will fly away, leaving you there, a sticky mess, your face smeared with honey. And this is how Kiva and Mordai will find you. They didn't see you doing mouth to mouth with the bee, but they do see the aftermath of you covered in honey, like Winnie the Pooh or a kid who got into something he wasn't supposed to get into. Take it away.
I think Osto's just maybe lying on his back in a state somewhere between bliss and craving more.
I think Mordai is concerned that he's met a similar fate, and goes to check on him, much like Kiva checked Mordai. But when he does so, he pulls his hands back, just sticky. It's like, oh, what got you? Are you okay?
I've never been better. The creatures of this forest are nothing for us to fear. I came upon a wondrous bee, and it shared with me its bounty. I'm sure if we carry on further, they would share with you too.
Bounty?
Honey. And Osto starts to stand up, cleaning the last scraps and drips and licking his fingers, and it is good. Very good. The freshest I've ever tasted.
Where it came from a bee?
Where else would honey come from? Of course. A bee, a most marvelous bee, the size of a dog. You've never seen such a thing.
A bee the size of a dog.
Yes. No small dog either.
Kiva has a giant stinger.
Yeah, yeah. I've been thinking about that ever since you described it.
Yep. Yeah, Mordai is absolutely nonplussed. Just like, okay. Maybe I'm still dreaming.
Kiva walks back to the water line and takes out her mask and scoops up some water, and she just splashes Osto in the face with it, hoping that maybe he'll come to his senses with some water. I'm like, get your senses about you. We know the bees are dangerous. The bees attacked us already.
Those foolish beekeepers attacked us. I don't think the bees mean us any harm. They were here. You saw that they had a stinger of one of these bees in one of those bags that you took, and one of the men was afflicted. I think they did something to harm these bees that live here. If we go further into the woods with pure intentions, the bees will not hurt us.
Intentions pure like honey, fresh from the comb.
If the royal apiarists pissed off the bees in this forest, I don't think our skills are going to match up. We must be on alert.
Moradai, are you currently camouflaging yourself more at this point?
Yeah, I need to cover up what was washed off. I need to redo my lines, and I think
give us a new element. A new element to
yeah,
disguise.
I think I'm actually going whatever honey had fallen on the ground, or maybe even wiping some off of Osto. That's probably a great way to camouflage myself as well. Just taking it and
smearing it all over.
Suddenly like rubbing on my chest and arms, but then eventually just like, okay, now it's everywhere. Just
so great. I turn to
it seems to have worked for Osto, so I'm going to do the same thing.
I turn to Mordai while he's doing this, and I hand him the stinger, and I'm like, you need a weapon. Take this.
And I consider it and tuck it in the back of my belt.
It's perfect for the disguise, so.
Yeah.
Good. You are quite suddenly aware of a swollen body sort of drifting slowly near you, half rotted, and in its burned hand, it's sort of burned hands, the body's clutching a brazier. Osto, what do you do?
I think Osto will stoop to examine this body and see what is this thing it had in its hand, and try and see if he can figure out what killed this person. You said bloated, like it's bloated as in it's been there for a while and swollen?
Swollen and half rotted. So it's been there for a minute.
Does it look like animals of any kind have been, eating at the body?
Well, do you mess with the body?
I think I will kneel down next to it and maybe try and roll it over if it's face down, and see if I can look at what is being held in the hand.
If you roll it over, it splits open, and a tangle of skinks crawls out of it. Make a ruin roll all over your hands, causing viscera and guts to be on you.
My ruin roll is 4.
And you're
So I
currently
think
at 4.
Yeah.
Nothing happens. But as far as ruin goes, anyway. But yeah, and now it's just like a big, chunky, fleshy mess. But there's a brazier. For burning smoke, for burning incense, creating smoke.
Yeah, I think Osto's aware that that may be something the beekeepers use. Is there still incense within it?
No. Well, it's waterlogged if it is, so yeah.
Nevertheless, I think it's not impossible. It could be useful later. So maybe I'll take it with me.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea. Moradai, you are aware of a skink trying to escape a swarm of fuzzy bees. Each bee is the size of a fist. So sort of Goldilocks bee in the middle of what you've been aware of at this point. The skink is trying to get away, and the bees are, it lashes back, like the skink lashes at the bees to keep them away. But the bees eventually manage to get on it and cover it, and they're buzzing and vibrating begins to cook the skink on the spot. You can smell the sort of wet, smoky smell rising up into your nose. They could do this to a person very easily if it came right down to it. Make a ruin roll, though.
A 5. It goes up.
How are you feeling?
I think intrigued, and I want to get closer, and maybe, I know they're much smaller than me, but try to participate in what's going on there, whether it's smothering the skink or
see if they welcome you.
eating it. Yeah.
Yes.
See if they can tell that I'm one of them.
Let's say they do welcome you, or you seem to interpret it that way. What do you do to the skink?
I think after it has died, I tear one of the legs off and start eating it. Whether it's cooked or raw at this point.
It's cooked.
Yeah.
Kiva, your poor benighted companions are losing themselves to the woods. But there is hope. Because stepping out of the tree line of the deep heart of the forest where you're headed toward your goal, stepping into the floodplain, but from the opposite direction, is a massive moose. The moose is 8 feet high at the shoulder, so much taller with the rack of horns and head. Enormous. It steps out into the floodplain, onto the wet soil, completely unbothered by the three of you. Its broad antlers are coated in honey and speckled with bees, little ones, some of them living, some of them dead. The beast's snout is sticky and slick, and its hoof prints are easy to trace in reverse, should you want to, because they have a sort of, they leave like a golden rind on the ground wherever he steps. This moose is a creature of folk tales that you all would have heard. And the appearance of it causes you to stop whatever madness you're currently engaged in to observe this majestic beast of legend. I would like each of you to tell a little story, or just a little something we are led to know about this moose based off the tales. It could be just a little bit of info or something more elaborate.
I think that Mordai at least knows many tales involving this moose in different circumstances or different environments. So it's not necessarily part of this place, but wherever it goes, it makes its own way and finds a way to get through the environment without becoming a part of it.
It's a moose that goes where it wants.
Yeah, there's stories about it in a swamp, in the mountains, in the icy north swamp, wherever.
And it seems this time he made it to the heart of the woods and is now on his way back, unbothered by anything. Osto, what tales have you heard?
I think just that the moose is impossibly old, as well as being impossibly huge. That it's something of the land, that its spirit is ancient and has been around longer than humans.
Kiva, what do you know of this moose?
The folk tale that I was told as a child about this moose was a cautionary tale. When you have found where the moose has crossed, you will see that what is left by its hooves dries into gold. But if you chase after the gold too far, you'll find the bear that's slowly following the moose. And the bear has these multifaceted eyes, and you do not want to be caught by it. But there is some risk for the reward if you can find the gold. So
fantastic. The moose passes by you, acknowledges you briefly, but then just continues on out of the humming woods, leaving its golden hoof prints. And as the moose passes, so passes Ring 2. And so ends our session for tonight. Let's do stars and wishes. That's our debrief technique. Stars are things that you enjoyed about the session. The ambiance, bits of role play, bits of characterization, anything really. And wishes are things that you hope to see next time. Maybe something in the story that appealed to you, you want to follow up on, that kind of thing. Think about it for a moment, and whoever wants to speak first, you can say stars or wishes or both, and we can go around as many times as we need. And I'll have some things to share too, but I always like to let others speak first.
I really enjoyed the deep level of detail in every part of everything, both that Jason provided and that we added on there. It makes the world or the part that we're in feel very very real. It's really cool.
I'll do star for everyone everyone did a great job leaning into the conditions. I was really happy with that. Just sort of like when I put that giant bee in your path, Rob, you know, knowing that you have to have sweet things. Like you leaned into that, even though it could have been a very dangerous situation. It wasn't, but it could have been, right? And I was really into that. And everyone did a nice job with that, like sort of leaning into the danger. So yeah, that was a star for me.
I like that our characters seem to complement one another pretty well. We were kind of an interesting group, and you know, there's a lot of variety there, but it also makes a lot of sense that we would be traveling together. So that worked out well. That was nice.
I wanted to give Rob a star because the scene with the honey, like you accepted the honey from the mouth, and like it was almost coded for me, coded in a sexual way, and that was very that made it very squicky in a very different new way, and that brings the horror.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like barely coated. So like the veil was very, very thin on that one. I picked up on that as well. It was good. It was good.
Yeah, I would love to see that on screen. That would be a pretty.
I also like in a way, I was almost there was the sexual aspect, of course, but there was also like a sort of like I almost got like the end of the Grapes of Wrath kind of vibe, you know, like a sort of mother's milk situation or something. I thought that was really intriguing as well. And I guess my wish would be, I just really want to see where that goes. Like I want to know if you've already like sort of laid laid out the possibility that like you are one of the bees, or you're one with the bees, or you at least want to present a pure you know, mother may I kind of situation with them. And so I'm intrigued by this, is for sure. Anyway, we can keep going with stars and wishes, whoever wants to go.
I really enjoyed the scene that Kai and Mark did with when they were on watch, and that strange coat. I was really intrigued about where that was going, and yeah, I was kind of half wanting them to wake me up and pull me into it, and half just wanting to see what they made of it, which was fun.
I had fun with that little goat scene because that's not in the incursion. That's just something I wanted to do, the little just sort of preamble, you know, and it was fun just to kind of like on the fly do that. Just come up with some weird shit on the fly. That's my favorite thing to do as a GM.
I enjoyed the fact that you gave me a chance to talk my way out of the fight with the beekeepers. Like, you know, it could have easily just been like, they don't listen to you, you know, they're mad with honey or whatever. But I got to use my flattery. I liked that.
Yeah, it was good. I actually felt kind of bad because I actually really liked Rob's plan for like helping the horse, but the incursion forces the horse to go over the edge. So it was kind of like it's the one like kind of ironclad detail in the scene. So, but under another circumstance, I probably let Rob do that. But yeah, so it was. I'm glad that we got some sort of problem solving. You know.
I always forget to use my ritual, so I was trying to jump in right there with.
Oh yeah, that's a wish for me. I'm excited to see a ritual next time. I want to see what a ritual looks like in this context. I'm pretty excited about that. So we got a little bit of the Kindle, like there was a little bit of it on screen as like sort of some fiction, but I want to do an actual ritual roll and see how that goes. So yeah, another star for me. I just really enjoyed the pace. So we market Trophy Dark as a one shot, but I say all the time I prefer it as a two shot, and I think the reason why is because you get this like really wonderful like languid pace, which is so nice to just sink into, you know, especially in the first two rings when things are kind of easy, you know, and so you get to sort of like just sort of settle into the setting, you know, and sort of learn a little bit about the characters, settle into things, and then we come back next week and shit goes haywire, right? Because it's the third through fifth ring, which are the most intense ones, especially the fourth and fifth. And so yeah, I just really enjoyed the pace, and I enjoyed the movie version of our game. Like I could see this stuff happening in my mind, and it just felt really, really pastoral, really folk horror. That was all really good for me.
I'm looking forward to the betrayals that are going to start happening next time,
Yes,
especially with
we should have some of
Moradai
those
having
teed up.
5 ruin.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed the inadvertent betrayal of just like Mordai not knowing what to do and
taking the anti-venom.
taking the only
I'll be curious if that comes back to bite you guys in the butt later,
Oh, yeah.
but we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Any other stars and wishes?
I liked that when Kai went into, I just received that condition for craving sugar, and he had Kiva.
Oh yeah, and offered you the
sweet
wine. Yeah, that was really
Nice.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that was good.
I was like, yeah, okay, I'm just keeping that, and I'm going to drain it, and there'll be nothing left for anything else.
So
Yeah,
I had
that
two
was really
purposes.
good.
I had two purposes for that. Obviously, it was allowing you to get into your sugar, but I knew you'd drink all of it. So now I get to be upset at you later on. Like, where's my wine skin, Osto? You know. So I get a dual purpose out of that one.
Oh, another wish. I'm excited to see how the spores or the pollen in your like the thing that plant. Another very sexual scene, by the way, when the stamen to you. I'm interested to see how that manifests. I don't want to forget it at the very least. So that's one thing to keep in mind for next time. Yeah, I guess my overall wish is I hope we just have I just hope these characters go down in a blaze of horrifying glory. You know, I just want to see them really just. It's always the most fun when they just completely tear themselves and each other apart. So that's what I'm rooting for. We'll see if the dice have their way or not. But anything else before we go? Okie doke. Well, it was great fun. I had a really good time. It was nice to play with you again, Rob and Mark, and it was nice to play with you for the first time, Kai. And we will meet again for the conclusion at the same time next week.
Sounds good.
Forward to it.
All right. Everybody have a good night.